Hey everybody, welcome back to Malts and Meeples and top 100 games of all time, 70 through 61. Today I just have some water. But we're going to continue on the top 100 games, kicking it off here with number 70, Sagata. Sagata is one of those games that I picked up actually quite a while ago. It was just a theme that was fun and mechanisms that were enjoyable. I really enjoy the dice drafting and kind of the strategy around how you place your dice onto the board in this game, because you have to think about that adjacency. If you can't have numbers next to each other, or colors next to each other, that creates this real puzzle as you're filling things in. And they give you just enough. They give you things like the tools that allow you to manipulate them, which I think is a really fun system that works well, because you can almost always find something that's useful for you, or if they're not always useful, sometimes there's just kind of a push your luck element that is really fun to this game. It's also one that's just easy to teach, easy to play, easy to follow along with what's happening. My number, 69 is going to be Mesozoic. This one is probably not a game that will show up on many people's lists, because this is kind of a weird little game. It's another drafting game, actually, but as you draft, you aren't so much... Well, you're thinking about what's going to work for you. You can look at it and you're trying to build your best zoo. But you draft, I believe it's 11 cards, and you shuffle them together. You create a 3x4 grid, and then you have to treat it like a sliding puzzle. And just that element is fun. You get 45 seconds on a timer to slide it around and try and get those elements you drafted into the position that you need, because sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. It's a matter of how well you can kind of rock a sliding puzzle, but also a matter of how well you drafted, because sometimes you may need to kind of double down on something that you drafted just in hopes of completing it to get those additional points. This one is fast, fun, goofy. I really enjoy it just for what it is. That light filler when you want to play something a little bit different in a game night evening. 68 is going to be Seven Wonders Duel. I enjoy Seven Wonders, but I found myself playing it 2 players. More often than probably I played it at higher player counts. And while I do have it in my collection, it's going to stay. Seven Wonders Duel is great because of the 2-player nature of the game. The dual kind of play of the pyramid, or the shape that you're drafting from, and as you uncover and flip over other cards, you have to strategize about how you're not opening it up for your opponent, because, well, you open it up too much, they're going to grab what they need. And I feel like it also balances some issues that I have with regular Seven Wonders. If one person... Well, I guess if players aren't paying attention, one person can run away with science. That can just get out of control, and now it's not that interesting. Now it's not that exciting anymore. You realize by the second or third end of second age, beginning of third age, a mistake has been made. And with Seven Wonders Duel, there's still an element of that, but science can just give you a straight up win. Or you can push military all the way to one end to give yourself a straight up win as well, which is fun because it creates, both of those create this tension, and you're only paying attention to what one other person's doing. In a draft, I might look at it and go like, okay, this person to my left, they want chickens. Now, they don't want sciences. So I'm fine passing sciences to them if that's not part of my strategy. But now, if the person after them wants sciences, I'm relying on them not drafting them. And it becomes a little bit of where may the chink in the armor lie of people drafting that just isn't as fun as I find Seven Wonders Duel to be. 67 is going to be Ice Cool. This one historically has been a whole lot higher on my list. I think it dropped for a couple different reasons. One, there's a flicking game that has passed it for me now, though I still really enjoy Ice Cool. And I think that the game itself, well, is really simple and fun. It's just not one that... I mean, I used to pull it off the shelf every year for a game night. Now I'm not sure that I'm going to do that. I think there's one that I pull off the shelf before that, and for that reason, this one kind of has been dropping a little bit for me. Still, I love the theme of this idea. You're penguin students, you're flicking stuff around the board, and then, yeah, you say, no. You're trying to get fish, and you're trying to keep away from the hall monitor who's trying to catch the students who are skipping class. It's chaotic, it's fun, it's silly. I had one of my favorite Gen Con events was playing in the tournament there the first year that I went, 2019, and like that element just it's one of those things where it's just silly, good, fun, and it works well for any group. And I should say, I know of one person who was maybe a little bit on it, but they also played it fairly drunk, so that might have had something to do with it. Number 66 is going to be a Super Fantasy Brawl. Another one that has dropped a little bit, and there's actually a new version of this coming out from CMON coming up here at some point in time. But basically, Super Fantasy Brawl is going to be a 2-player, though I think you can do 3, but I look at it as a 2-player head-to-head brawling game. But it's not a game where it's just whoever can knock out the other person's characters first. You get points, and it's basically a race to 5 points. You get points for knocking out characters, but there are also missions and objectives, I should say, that you need to complete. And if you complete them at the right times, those can be worth 2 trophies, and that can be a big swing in the game. I don't know that you can fully go in either way. I think you have to look at it and say, you know what, I need to deal with this both with attacking the enemy, because attacking the enemy, often you can manipulate where they are, but also trying to complete the objectives. And I also really like how the objectives are scored here, because the objectives are just scored by at the start of your turn. So if I position myself around to have the majority around the blue pillar, let's just say that's what it is. That's my objective. Well, now I have to survive my full opponent's turn before I get those trophies. I also really like the simplicity of the game. You basically have 3 different colored action tokens, blue, red, and yellow. That allows you to activate all of those once. And you can activate them for defense as well. So you can activate them not on your turn, but they don't refresh on your turn. So now you're having fewer actions on your turn to deal with the enemy and able to play defense earlier on. It's a really fun puzzle, and like drafting different teams and figuring out what strategy and combination works best for you is great. Number 65 is going to be Trailblazers. This one is a new one to the list, and I've played it a few times on stream here on Malts and Meeples, so check that out if you aren't familiar with this one. But this is basically a game of building different paths. You build a hiking path, you build a kayaking path. Oddly enough, the kayaking path does need to go in a loop like everything else. And you build bike trails. And you're basically just trying to complete the longest trails. So you're drafting a card, and then you put it down. And you put it down adjacent to another card, overlapping another card. But you have your 3 different home bases. All the kayaking or canoeing ones have to connect to this one, while the other 2 are specifically for hiking and for biking. And that is a fun puzzle as well, because you're not just creating this loop, you're creating this starting point to end point specifically, and all of this is in a single grid. So you're trying to figure out, okay, how can I set myself up for a canoeing or kayaking route here while still using this piece for biking? Because you want to reuse as much as you can, create as many different paths as you can. The game is fun. One of those simple games, simple to learn, but a ton of fun to play. Then my number 64. 64 is going to be Mind Up. I actually wrote about this one today on nerdologist.com. This is one that I say that is easy to teach and easy to play. And I really enjoy that about it. I enjoy it both in person, and I played it on Board Game Arena as well. Though I think in person is a little bit better, at least for me. The reason I don't love it on Board Game Arena is I feel like if I'm playing on Board Game Arena, I should just be taking notes on everything. I should be jotting down what everybody has. And I suspect in asynchronous games, there's some people who do that. I don't think the majority of people do, but I think some people do that. And that really changes up the experience because you can optimize your strategy. In this game, you have your hand of cards, and there's a row of, let's say you're playing a 5-player game, 5 cards in the middle. Every player picks 1 card from their hand, puts it face down, and then you flip up simultaneously. Then you look at your numbers, and you find in order, so like the lowest number that somebody plays out, they get the lowest number card in the middle row, and then next, and so on and so forth. Then those 5 cards that you played, those create the new row, and you continue doing that until there's 1 card left in your hand, and you're going to play that one into your scoring tableau. Your scoring tableau has 5 different columns, 1 for each color, and their points are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, except it's not going to be in that order. You're going to shuffle it up, and everybody's going to have the same order. So if it goes 1, 5, 2, 3, 4, well, everybody has 1, 5, 2, 3, 4. And you're trying to figure it out so that the most cards end up on the 5 and the 4, because that's going to give you the most points, because it's 5 points per card on the 4, or on the 5, or 4 points per card on the 4. That first column, that 1, you want to try and avoid that in this scenario. Plus then, some of the cards have positive or negative modifiers, like 60 and 1 both have a -1 modifier on them. I believe it's just -1. Why? Because they're guaranteed to get the highest and lowest number. So you're guaranteed, if you have those cards, to get the end card on whichever side you want, whenever you want to. And so there's a drawback of when you get it and put it into your tableau of its negative points. There's just a -1 modifier, so if it goes on the 5, the card is still worth 5 points, but then you count up all your modifiers, and it's just plus minuses. And so that is another just really simple way. And you do it 3 times. But the fun part too, beyond that, is as you do it, as you play out the first hand, you collect all your cards in your tableau. You pick those cards up for your second hand, and that's what your hand is. There's going to be 1 random card added to it, but that's going to be your hand. So you can start to kind of learn the numbers that are in there. And this game, yeah, it just works really well, and I have so much fun with it every time I play it. 63, I believe, yes, so Clover. 63 is going to be a party game on the list. It's one of, I would say, two games that kind of lean party-ish. This is the truest party game on this section. But So Clover is basically that... I'm trying to think. It's where you take two words. The best way to put it is you have... This is actually a tricky game to explain without the game in front of you. But basically you have your clover, and you have your four-leaf clover and you can see those little bumps, 2 bumps per side. Well, each of those bumps is going to have a word. So I might have firefighter and let's say alarm. I could go with, well, yeah, truck or something like that. But you might also end up with chicken and fireman. Okay, what's your connecting, I guess, roast? Barbecue? Barbecue, maybe? But you're trying to come up with a word, and you have to do that for all 4 sides. So it's like, okay, well, how difficult is it? That's just kind of the first part of the game. Then after that, you take off all your words, you flip them down, you add in a 5th, and you mix them up. Then you flip them all over, and everybody else is working together to try and get it put back together in one guess. If they don't, they have another guess, and you can leave the things that are right, or you just tell them you got 3 right, or you got 2 right, whatever it might be. But there's a random 5th one in there, and sometimes that's just the perfect one for one of your clues, and they just cannot get off that idea. And I love this as just a cooperative, fun activity game because everybody gets to kind of fill out their clovers at once, and then you just go around the circle. Everybody flips over their clovers, and you see how well you score. That's really how the game works, and it leads to a lot of laughs, a lot of good conversation about it, and some really clever play too, which I like in a party game, when you can feel like you're still doing something clever as you do in a lot of board games. 62 is going to be something completely different, Castles of Burgundy. And this is the edition that I have right now. I do have the Awaken Realms fancy version coming at some point in time, but this is one that I've played in person, and I've played a bunch on Board Game Arena, and I really enjoy. It's a worker placement, well, not really a worker placement, it's a action selection draft tile purchasing game where you're building out your kind of kingdom, your area that is just this board, and you're filling in the different areas to score points, as well as then to get and sell goods, which allow you to get more points and buy more tiles, as well as then you have these dice, and you're basically figuring out how to use the dice. How do you either allocate a die to get a tile off the board, main board, or to take one of those stored tiles and put it onto your board, plus a few different other things like the buying and selling of goods, well, selling of goods I should say, and then workers, which are basically your randomness mitigation. I think that it's a really intriguing puzzle of a game. I feel like I need to solidify a better strategy for it. I definitely have thoughts on what I can do better, but the more I play it, the more just kind of intrigued I am with it, and I really appreciate the speed that you can get to play the game once you know what you're doing. And then final one, number 61 here, is going to be Letter Jam. Letter Jam is the one that I said was kind of a party game. Kind of is, kind of isn't. Because in Letter Jam, it's really a word game. You have a scrambled up word in front of you, and you can't see it. The other people everybody else at the table can see one letter of your word because it's flipped facing them. And as a group, since this is another cooperative game, you are trying to give out clues to help people figure out their letters so that then they can unscramble their message or their word. And if you can unscramble your word, that's how you get points at the end of the game, which means everybody needs to know all their letters, or somebody has to be really confident it doesn't matter about their last letter because they already know what word it is. If anybody ever is like that, don't believe them. But this is a really fun experience of a word game. I like the Hanabi-like element of you can't see what you have. I like the deductive element of I can see the letters that are used to create a word except for mine. So let's say I can see an FR blank M. I'm the blank. So you could do form. You can do F blank RM. But that doesn't actually help me that much because I can look at that and go, well, my letter, the O in form, could be either an A, an I, or an O. But if you do FROM, from, I know that mine's going to be an O because fram, frem, frim, from, with a U, are not actual words. Does it help everybody? Maybe. Because you have F blank OM, you have blank ROM, and that's the one that doesn't help as well. And then FRO, and there's a couple again, but like frau or from, basically. At least that I can come up with off the top of my head. So it's coming up with these good clues. You want to be able to try and figure out your letter within a couple of clues so that you can also still be giving clues yourself. Because, like I said, this is a cooperative game. Everybody needs to get their words. Like, to score your highest score, everybody needs their words. But with that, we've reached the end of another 10 here. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you have fun with this. Let me know which of these games you'd love to play and maybe which of them you have played and either you enjoy, maybe you disagree with me on it. Let me know that down in the comment section below. And please give the video a thumbs up. If you're interested in the content that we put out here, it's generally on Mondays, a small solo game. Right now, on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Central, I'm doing my top 100 games. Obviously, we're 4 weeks into it now, so check out the backlog on that. And then on Fridays at 9 p.m. Central, my wife and I have started playing Baldur's Gate 3, so look for that stream out there as well. And if you want to check out other content that I do a lot of different board game type content over on nerdologist.com. The link for that's in the description below, but it's not just board games there. It's also sci-fi, fantasy, movies, anime, manga, books, RPGs, all that jazz that you can check out over there. As well as then I have a podcast called 10 Minute Marvel, which you can find wherever you get your friendly neighborhood podcast from, and is great for you if you enjoy the Marvel movies, comics, and TV shows and stuff like that as much as I do. But with that, bottoms up.